When my wife died, I thought my daughter and I would grow closer. Instead, she took our house and $25 million, then threw me out. "Go die somewhere else, you're useless," she told me. I slept on neighbors' couches until my lawyer called. "Did you even read your wife's will?" In his office, when he read it aloud, my daughter's face went pale. She never knew all the rights were mine. 3 days later, she came begging me for help. "My name is Victor. I am 68, a widower, and a grandfather of 3. I built my life with my wife Lydia, a grocery chain that started with one neighborhood store and grew into something that scared the bankers who used to ignore us. We planned to grow old in the White House with the crooked cedar tree out front. Instead, I buried her in April, and in May I learned what grief turned some people into. Lydia and I met in a produce aisle that did not belong to us yet. She corrected the price on a crate of oranges and then corrected me when I laughed about it. "If you do not respect pennies," she said, "dollars will never respect you." I fell in love with her accuracy first, then the laugh that followed when the work was done. We married in a small church that smelled like beeswax, the same smell that later clung to our first store. The first store was a narrow room with buzzing lights and shelves I cut my hands on while installing. We signed for our first delivery at 4 a.m. Lydia counted eggs softly under her breath. I learned to read the morning by how the glass door fogged when the bread came in warm. We kept a spiral notebook under the register. Lydia wrote every number down, the neatest handwriting you ever saw. When we could finally afford a barcode scanner, she kept the notebook anyway. "Paper remembers," she said, and she was right. The business grew by patience rather than miracle. We added a second location, then a third. We learned to negotiate refrigerator repair in the same breath as ad buys on the back page of the parish bulletin. The chain did not explode. It put on weight the way a healthy tree does. Rings, invisible until you cut it open. By the time bankers started calling us by our first names, we already knew which of them did not mean it. Lydia handled those meetings. I stocked shelves before sunrise and closed the stores after dark, but Lydia was the one who made grown men do math out loud. We bought the White House when Ava was 9. The realtor called the slanted cedar a quirk. Lydia called it a compass. On windy days it bent toward the street like a person trying to hear better. We hung a tire swing from the strongest limb and told Ava the tree leaned because it had spent years listening to the secrets of our block. She liked that. She brought her friends home after school and taught them to count change with the jar of dry beans we kept by the kitchen sink. Ava was our only child, sharp as a new knife and twice as quick. As a little girl, she lined up carrots by length while Lydia chopped. As a teenager, she called our stores quaint, with a smile that said she meant old. On her 18th birthday, she wore a red dress and told us she would never live the kind of life where her hands smelled like onions. I remember feeling two things at once: pride that she wanted a bigger world, and a small, bruised ache that she thought ours was too small. Then Noel arrived. Flawless suit, handshake practiced in a mirror, a voice that sounded like the elevators he liked to ride to offices higher than ours. He and Ava fit together in photographs. Around the table, Lydia would ask him about his investment partnership, and he would answer in a way that said everything and nothing. He spoke in promises: scale, exit, liquidity, the kind of words that make magazines put your face on their covers. I watched him handle a wine glass the way a person handles a prop. I tried to like him because my daughter did. Lydia did not try. She simply waited and took notes. Our grandchildren softened the edges. Maya, 14, devours books and facts and has a mouth that moves faster than her judgment. Leo, 10, thinks in pictures, careful and bright. When he gets angry, his words bunch together and he and I take walks until they untangle. Ellie, 7, counts songs instead of sheep and leaves tiny rosin fingerprints on the dining table. They filled the house with the ordinary music that makes an old man feel useful. "Grandpa, where is the tape measure?" "Grandpa, which screwdriver?" "Grandpa, can I have another pancake if I read 2 more pages?" Lydia grew quiet the winter before she died. Not sick at first, just thoughtful. She began putting papers in a red folder and meeting with our attorney, a careful man named Mr. Keene whose neckties always matched nothing in particular. I asked if something was wrong. She said, "Everything is right, which is why I am making lists." She loved lists. She taught me that lists are for the living, not the dying. I told her I would sign where she pointed, the way I always had. She put her hand on my chest and said, "Read, even if it hurts." In the end, the hospital room was clean and the good kind of quiet, the kind where the machine does what it must without drama. I held her hand and counted her breaths until there were none to count. We buried her on a cold April afternoon. The cedar at home bent until it looked like it would snap. Grief rearranges a house faster than a remodel. I misplaced days. I found a mug of tea in the pantry and the sugar in the fridge. I wore the same sweater because it smelled like her scarf. The phone rang and rang. People brought casseroles with labels and dates. I accepted everything because saying no took a kind of strength I did not have. Ava moved quickly. She visited every morning that first week with the brisk kindness of a nurse who has 20 more rooms to see. "You should not be thinking about paperwork, Dad," she said, smoothing the tablecloth until it had no wrinkles. "Let me handle things." "You heal." She told me there were forms to initial, nothing heavy, just signatures to keep bills paid and staff reassured. I remember the pens more than the pages. Thick black pens that made it easy for old hands to write. My world did not feel trustworthy enough for details. Practical things happened around me. Mail was forwarded. The alarm code changed because the old company was terrible, Dad. They hired children. She made new labels for the pantry. Door hinges got oiled. The family office, an invented term that used to mean 2 people in a spreadsheet, started sending me summaries by email instead of paper. I promised myself I would print them and read them when my head cleared. I did not print them. I did not read. A week after the funeral, a moving truck rumbled up the driveway at 8 in the morning. Paramount Movers, blue letters on the side, men in matching shirts making the kind of jokes people make when they are not sure if they are allowed to laugh. Ava walked ahead with a clipboard. "We are decluttering," she said, tapping boxes with the blunt end of a marker. "You will thank me later." My chair, the one that remembers every backache I brought home from the store, was carried past me and set on the curb next to a box marked "Donate." I thought it was a mistake and opened my mouth to say so, but one of the movers was already lugging out the photo albums. By midday, the house sounded different. Rugs gone, curtains down, the echo of a room that has decided not to recognize you. When I tried the front door, my key turned once and stuck. A man I had never seen before in a dark uniform asked for my name and then for identification. He used the word "sir" and the tone that means it is only a word. He was polite and heavy and made of policies I had not signed. "Call my daughter," I said, and I heard how small my voice had become. She came to the doorway with a phone to her ear, nodding to someone I could not see. "Dad, you knew I was changing the locks," she said, as if we had already discussed it and I had simply forgotten. "There are liability issues. It is not safe for you here while I sort things out. Go stay with a neighbor for a few days. I will send someone with your toiletries and medications." "My house," I said, and the words felt like a child's toy in an adult hand. She did not shout. She did not have to. She closed the space between us, smelling like the expensive lotion that makes skin feel like it belongs to someone else. "Go die somewhere else. You are useless," she told me almost gently, as if she were telling me I had spinach in my teeth. The guard waited with me on the sidewalk while I tried to decide where an old man goes when he has been erased. A spring wind came through the cedar and made it whisper like a thing that had seen too much. I lifted my chair from the curb and carried it to a neighbor's porch. The cushion was still warm from the sun, and for a strange, stubborn second, I thought if I could sit in it long enough, the door would remember me. I slept on a different couch every night for a week. I learned which neighbors make strong coffee and which ones keep quilts that smell like cedar. I learned that quiet men like me can still cry so hard we startle ourselves awake. By the second night I kept a toothbrush in my coat pocket like a boy late for gym class. A plastic grocery bag became my suitcase. Socks, blood pressure pills, a photograph of Lydia that I could not look at without touching. I folded the bag carefully so it would not crinkle in the dark and announced that the old man on the couch was up again. I started sleeping with my shoes on, laces loosened, ready to leave before anyone's children came down for cartoons and saw me there like a forgotten piece of furniture. Each couch had its map of springs and valleys. The Khan's sofa dipped in the middle, so I woke pressed into myself, as if the couch wanted to make me small enough to keep. Mrs. Hart kept her living room neat as a chapel. I lay flat as a board under a throw blanket that smelled like cedar and laundry soap, counting the ticks in their grandfather clock. Mr. Alvarez brewed coffee that could stand on its own 2 feet and asked no questions. He left a charger plugged into the wall for me. "So your phone does not die," he said, and there was a look in his eyes that asked whether I knew the difference between a dying phone and a man who had nothing left to call. Sometimes I would startle awake, throat tight, sure that the door had opened and Lydia was coming in with her list for the day. Eggs, invoices, light bulbs for aisle 4. The realization that it was only the refrigerator cycling or the neighbor's dog would knock the breath out of me. I would sit up and wipe my face with my sleeve and try to decide which hurt more, that she was gone or that our daughter had told me to go die somewhere else. Where was the switch? That question followed me from sofa to sofa. When did the warmth in our family flip to cold? Was it that birthday when Ava smoothed her red dress and said our stores were quaint? Was it the first time Noel explained liquidity with his hands instead of words and I felt stupid for not understanding a shape? Was it Lydia growing quiet last winter, putting papers in the red folder, telling me to read even if it hurts? And me, the man who counts inventory to the onion, deciding that love meant trusting without reading? Maybe the switch was smaller. Maybe it was a pen. Those thick black pens Ava brought me after the funeral. Did the world change not at the cemetery, not at the moving truck, but at the moment the pen touched paper and I made quick initials where a husband should have made time? I replayed that scratch of ink over and over. I heard the tiny click of the lock cylinder too, the new key turning me into a visitor on my own porch. Switches are small, locks are too. You do not hear your life change. You hear a click and only later learn what door it belonged to. I tried to be fair to my daughter in the dark hours when a man is least proud. Grief makes people efficient, and efficiency can be a kind of cruelty. She had always been quick. As a child, she lined up carrots by length. As a woman, she lined up signatures. Did she think she was protecting me from the mess? Or had Noel finally convinced her that family is a ledger and fathers are entries you can write off? I turned these thoughts like coins in my pocket, the same ones I counted out for bus fare in the morning. Practical humiliations taught me new arithmetic. How long can a man carry a photograph before the edges curl? How many nights does it take before you know the soft spot on each neighbor's couch by heart? How many ways can you say thank you without sounding like someone who intends to stay? I learned to fold a borrowed blanket so it looked untouched. I learned to leave no trace except the dent in the cushion that sprang back by noon. On the 4th night, I set Lydia's photo on the coffee table and tried to bargain with it. If I had pushed harder when Ava said she would handle the paperwork, would anything be different? If I had insisted we read together, line by line, would our daughter have dared? If I had told Noel that I did not want his vocabulary in my kitchen, would I be sleeping in my own bed? The bargaining went nowhere. Photographs do not negotiate. They witness. By the 6th night, a thought I did not want sharpened itself. Perhaps the switch had been waiting in me all along. I had trained myself, as a husband and a father, to be useful. I stocked shelves, I lifted, I fixed what broke. I believed usefulness was love. When Lydia died, I stopped being useful in the ways I understood. I mistook that for having no worth at all, and I let Ava treat me the way I was treating myself. Maybe the first door that locked was the one inside me. On the 7th morning, with the sky the color of dishwater and my back a map of the week, I stood in Mr. Alvarez's kitchen, staring at the telephone as if it might instruct me. I patted my pockets by habit, keys that opened nothing, wallet thin with cash I did not want to spend, the small crinkled bag with my life inside. I thought of the red folder Lydia had carried under her arm, how she had said, "Read, even if it hurts." The hurt had come either way. Reading, at least, might give the hurt a shape. That was the morning the phone rang with Mr. Keene's number. Before I answered, I looked at Lydia's picture and said, out loud, "Tell me where the switch is." The line clicked, and for once the click felt like a door unlocking instead of closing. "Victor," said Mr. Keene, the estate lawyer, "did you even read your wife's will?" I had not. I had only held it to my heart the night before the funeral because I could not bear to open something that spelled the end. "Come in," he said. "Bring Ava." He added in that careful way of his, "And bring anything you have signed since Lydia passed." Every page. Today, 10 o'clock, I checked the bus schedule like a schoolboy. No car, no driver. I shaved with the little razor I kept in my pocket and pressed my shirt with the warm bottom of a neighbor's kettle. I counted the cash in my wallet twice, then a third time, put 2 singles back for coffee after, and slid the red folder Lydia had favored into a plastic grocery bag. I told myself the bag did not matter. Paper remembers, plastic carries. I texted Ava from Mr. Alvarez's kitchen table. "Mr. Keene wants us both at his office at 10. Her reply arrived in the chime that used to make me smile. "We have counsel." "This is unnecessary. Please do not make a scene." I typed and erased 3 responses before I sent. 10. The bus came with its usual sigh, a tired animal kneeling to let in the old and the hopeful. I sat by the window and watched our city pass in smudged panes, our bakery with the bell that sticks in winter, the church where Lydia liked the early service because it left the day for work, our first store with the new awning that looks expensive and somehow cheaper. I gripped the red folder and tried to guess the weight of my mistakes by ounces. A man can carry the wrong thing for a long time if he convinces himself it is not heavy. Keene and Weller's building had floors that told you what they cost when you stepped on them. The lobby smelled like lemon oil and air that had never been outside. A wall of brass mailboxes lined up like quiet soldiers. The receptionist knew my name without asking. "Mr. Petrov, Victor," she corrected herself, gentle as a nurse. "Would you like water?" I took it, because old men must accept small kindnesses the way they once accepted overtime. I waited in a leather chair that felt more honest than the ones at home. I checked my watch, forgot the time, checked again. Elevators opened and closed like mouths choosing words. Ava arrived first, the glass doors parting for her reflection and then for her. Silk blouse the color of iced champagne, hair in a smooth knot that said morning had not mussed her. Noel came half a step behind, as always, fingers already tapping his phone, face arranged for a photograph no one was taking. There is a smell to new money, sweet, hurried, a little nervous. The room had it. Before the receptionist could stand, Ava was beside me. "Dad," she said, smiling the way people smile in lobby mirrors, "we can settle this without dragging Mr. Keene into it. We just need your signature on the temporary management agreement. It is very standard temporary. Standard. Words that mean permanent if you are tired." "I would like to hear what your mother wrote," I said. My voice sounded like the edge of a page that has been turned too many times. She lowered her smile the way a person lowers a blind to keep the sun off a screen. "You did not read it?" "Dad, that is not responsible." She reached for the red folder in my lap, thumb already on the tab. I held it tighter. Her hand paused, then retreated to the strap of her handbag, where a silver pen waited like a small sword. Noel finally looked up from his phone. "Victor," he said, practicing warmth, "we are double parked. Let us not waste your time with formalities. The faster we sign, the faster everyone can move on." Move on from what exactly? From a lifetime? From a woman who counted eggs under her breath and made bankers do math out loud? I looked at his shoes, the kind that do not understand sidewalks, and at Ava's blouse, which would never be washed in a sink. I tried to find the girl who counted carrots by length and brought home report cards with smudged erasers. I could not see her through the glass. "Mr. Petrov," the receptionist said softly, "Mr. Keene will see you now." Ava smoothed her blouse and touched my elbow, guiding, not comforting. "Remember," she whispered, "this is routine. Do not get lost in the weeds. Sign, and we will handle the rest." "I have been lost in the weeds my whole life," I said. "They are where the food grows." She blinked, confused by a language she used to speak. We walked down the carpeted hall that eats footsteps. The door to the conference room opened soundlessly, as if arguments here never slammed. Mr. Keene stood at the far end, papers stacked, glasses low on his nose. He nodded to me, then to Ava and Noel. "Let us begin," he said. And for the first time since April, the room felt like it belonged to someone who knew the difference between a pin and a switch. I would not have believed what I was about to hear. Justice was right next to me. I only had to reach out and fight for it. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. "Victor," Mr. Keene said, "I will tell you this in plain English." He pointed to the first page. "The house is yours to live in for the rest of your life. Period. No one can lock you out. You decide who comes in and who does not." Those words landed like keys in my hand, my chair, my mug, my door. He tapped the next section. "All the money and business shares are in a box that pays you. You are the only person who can open that box. If anyone has been spending from it without your say-so, we stop it and take it back." I felt the old shame try to rise, those quick signatures after the funeral, but the floor under it was gone. He turned a page. "If anyone fights you or tries to push you out, they lose their share. It skips them and goes to the kids." I pictured Maya's fast grin, Leo's careful eyes, Ellie's bow arm. A safer road for them. He tapped the last rule. "If anyone dumped you or left you alone when you needed help, they do not get paid for 10 years, not a dime. A judge can change that only if you are made whole." I kept my eyes on the table. My heartbeat for once felt steady. Then he laid out what we would do today. No fancy words, just tasks. "First, you go home and change the locks. I will send papers to the sheriff and the security company saying you are the man in charge. If a guard blocks you, he is the trespasser. Second, we call every bank and freeze any new accounts opened after April in your name. No warnings to anyone. We get written confirmations. While that is happening, I hand you a small check for groceries and medicine. Third, you remove any co-trustee who was added without your clear yes. Do not approve anything by email. Only sign on paper, here. Fourth, we hire a money expert to trace every transfer since April. If money went to Noel's partnership, we send demands and get a court order so it cannot be moved. Let the paper do the knocking. Fifth, pay your store workers and vendors directly. No new apps, no family office logins. For 1 week you sign paper checks. You will curse the pile. Sign them anyway." He softened his voice. "Last, you go to your kitchen, read Lydia's will out loud, and then you call your grandchildren. Sunday dinner is at your house. The trust can cover the food. Only you can make the soup." Ava started to speak about stability and contracts. Mr. Keene did not raise his voice. "Stability is not someone taking what is yours," he said. "We are not wrecking anything. We are putting it back the way Lydia intended." Noel tried one more angle. "Maybe a temporary co-management. For optics, no," Mr. Keene said. "One word, clean as a closed door." He slid me a simple blue pen. "Sign here to accept your role as the person in charge. We will file it before the coffee cools." The last time a pen touched paper, I gave away parts of my life because I was hurting. This time I took them back. When I finished my name, the hard words on the pages were no longer hard. "House is mine. I am the boss. If anyone messes with me, they are out. The money pays me first, and the grandchildren are protected." Mr. Keene gathered the pages and let out the smallest breath, the sound a man makes when a bolt finally turns the right way. "Good," he said. "Let us go home." Justice, I decide, is not thunder or a gavel. It is shelves set straight after a long day. It is counting eggs aloud and coming up with the same number twice. It is pennies respected so dollars do not learn bad habits. Lydia taught me that. She did not chase victories. She balanced ledgers until both sides told the truth. Our name was built on small, visible things. We weighed fruit honestly. We paid invoices on time even when the month ended early. We called customers by name and wrote returns in a notebook because paper remembers. When a freezer failed, I slept on sacks of flour to keep them cool until dawn. When a cashier's till was short, we checked the math before we checked the person. That is our legacy. Do the next right thing, and if you cannot, do the nearest right thing and move toward the rest. Somewhere between the first store and these polished floors, I let grief convince me that good men are allowed to move their eyes past the page. I called it trust. It was laziness dressed in sorrow. Justice now is not punishing my daughter. It is facing my part. I signed where I should have read. I let the silence after a funeral do the talking. If our house is crooked, I own the first hammer swing. What is fair here? Fair is me sleeping in my own bed. Fair is my grandchildren eating soup at my table on Sundays without someone checking a balance first. Fair is Ava hearing the word no without me apologizing to her for saying it. Fair is Noel learning that families are not spreadsheets and fathers are not optics. I do not want to wound. I want to repair. Repair needs tools, not speeches. The tools today are plain. Keys first. Keys are truth you can hold. New locks, installed by someone who looks me in the eye. One key for me, one for a neighbor who has already given me coffee, one in a drawer that sticks because Lydia always meant to sand it and never did. A sign on the gate with my name as trustee. Names change behavior. Then the banks. Managers called by name, not titles. Letters faxed and emailed and handed over the counter. I will ask for stamped copies. Paper that went one way can be called back the other if you start early and keep asking the same question until the answer is printed. Security next. The man in the dark uniform who called me sir, like a courtesy notice. He will either take orders from me or he will take them somewhere else. Calm, not loud. I will bring a deputy, not as a threat, as a witness. Witnesses keep tempers small. The stores I will stand behind the register for a week and sign paper checks. I will initial the corners of invoices until my wrist protests. I will look the produce manager in the eye and say, 2 cases of romaine, not 3. We waste one every Friday. I will make lists that turn into tasks and tasks that turn into normal. Normal is the goal. Not victory, not revenge. Normal. The money that walked out wearing Noel's shoes, let the accountant and the court go find it. I will not call. I will not warn. I will not posture. The paper will knock. If it cannot be brought back, the lesson can, and sometimes that is a more reliable currency. Ava, this is the hardest beam to set straight. Justice for her is not humiliation. It is consequence. She will not touch the money for 10 years, not because I hate her, but because she treated me like a stranger at my own door. She will apologize to her mother at the grave, and to me in the kitchen where she learned to count by moving beans from cup to cup. She will leave Noel's schemes or live on what she can earn without my name. I will speak for her when the law asks for a voice if she is trying to make things right. Mercy is not a coupon. It does not apply to everything, but I know how to make room for it when someone starts paying back what they took. The grandchildren are simple. Protect them, pay for what makes them strong, and keep them close to ordinary. Maya needs books and a place to argue. Leo needs therapy that arrives like clockwork and long, quiet walks. Ellie needs a violin teacher who corrects her wrist and a table she can set before she plays. The trust can buy those things. I will provide the table. My next step after the office is not a speech. It is a bus ride with a folder under my arm and a small, steady plan. Change the locks, call the banks, hire the new guard, walk the aisles of the first store and click the price gun until the labels march straight again. Read Lydia's will out loud in the kitchen, even when the words fog my eyes. Put on soup. Call the children. Sunday, 5 o'clock. Bring your homework. We will solve what we can at the table. If Ava comes to the door before the paper does, I will listen without letting go of the doorknob. I will tell her the rules slowly, like a recipe. I will not shout. I will not repeat myself. If Noel appears with a smile for the camera that is not there, I will point to the sign with my name and wait for him to read. Justice is not a feeling, it is a sequence. I have the first step in my pocket, cool and shaped like a key. The cedar at home will lean toward the street like a man listening. I will turn the lock, and if the house breathes when I enter, I will breathe with it. Then I will get to work. I left Keene's office with the papers in my pocket and a list in my head. Locks, banks, security. By afternoon, the sign was on the gate with my name, the code was changed, and the house knew me again. That is when Ava arrived. She came fast, heels on stone, Noel at her shoulder, the old guard trailing behind them like a bad idea. "Open this gate," she said to the guard. "My father is confused." I held up Keene's letter. "The house is mine to live in. I am the one in charge. If you want to come in, you come as a guest." She laughed without humor. "Guest? In my mother's house?" "In my wife's house," I said. "And in my home." Choose your words. The deputy beside me did not raise his voice. "Ma'am, he's the lawful occupant." "Do not cross the gate without permission." A muscle jumped in Ava's jaw. "Dad, unlock this." "You are making a scene." "The scene is over," I said. "You can pick up personal items tomorrow at 10, 1 hour, supervised. Nothing leaves that belongs to the trust." Noel tried a slick smile. "We will sue." "You are welcome to try," I said. "But if you challenge me, you lose your share. Read the clause, or have someone finally read it to you." Ava went still. She handed me her key like it burned. The next morning she returned with 2 movers, boxes already labeled. "We are just taking my clothes and files," she said. "And the dining table you staged," Noel added. "The table stays," I answered. "Everything that was here before Lydia's funeral stays. Clothes, toiletries, and personal documents only. Leave a written list. I will sign what I approve." They tried to push past. The new security man stepped forward. The deputy spoke once. The movers backed away and waited at the curb, studying their shoes. Inside, Ava stood in the kitchen and looked everywhere but at me. "You are humiliating me," she said. "No," I said. "I am setting rules. Humiliation is what you did to me on this threshold." She swallowed and pointed toward the bedrooms. 1 hour, I reminded her. "Then you leave." When she came back down with boxes, I opened one at random. Shoes, another, photos of the children. I nodded. "These go. The lamp does not." "Why not?" Noel said. "Trust property," I said. "Also, it was your grandmother's." Ava's mouth tightened, but she said nothing. At the door she tried one last time. "Can we at least keep a key?" "For the kids visit by invitation," I said. "Sunday at 5. You do not need a key for that." She put the boxes in the truck and stood for a long moment under the cedar, watching it lean toward the street like it was listening for a better version of us. "This is not over," she said. "It is not," I agreed. "It is just starting in the right place." They drove off. The house settled. I hung my coat on the old peg, set my keys in a bowl, and dialed the bank managers by name. Justice did not feel like victory. It felt like the lock clicking, once, and staying where it should. But at that moment, I wasn't ready to what is about to come. That night the house finally sounded like itself, wood settling, a faucet tapping once in the dark, the cedar brushing the window like a hand that forgives. I ate my soup, washed the bowl, and walked the rooms with the satisfied caution of a man who has just set a bookshelf level. Keys on the hook, alarm code in my head, Lydia's red folder within reach. I told myself I had won, then corrected it to something safer. I had completed step 1. Dawn arrived as a fist on the door. Too many boots on the steps, too many radios. Paper held up at chest height, stamped hard. Emergency guardianship. Temporary conservator, Ava. 72 hours. Vacate. The words did what cold water does. My instinct was to protest. My discipline was to preserve the record. I took a breath, noted badge numbers, time, names. I did not argue law on the threshold. I did not volunteer stories. I said only what had to be said for the paper to hear. I did not consent to the removal of any trust property. Then I stepped back long enough to gather what mattered. Medicines, sweater, the red folder. I touched my chair like a man tells a dog he will return. Outside, the street had been turned into a process. The old guard had multiplied. A locksmith unrolled tools. A truck idled, exhaust making little ghosts. I saw my grandchildren in the back seat of a rideshare down the block. Wide eyes, a violin case clutched like a life preserver. I lifted a hand, steady, and sent them away with a nod. Protecting them now meant keeping them out of the frame. By noon, the drill had eaten the old locks. Their people moved in with boxy certainty. I sat with coffee that steamed like a small weather system in my hands and answered the doctor's questions with a precision that felt like defiance. Dates, names, the path from our first store to our latest lease, ring by ring like a tree. I watched him check boxes and write sentences that will outweigh a hurried petition. Keene arrived moving like a man who has rehearsed this hallway. He spread forms on Mr. Alvarez's table and built a stack that could stand on its own. Will, trustee acceptance, bank freeze confirmations, the security contract with my name, the deputy's card, the video clip from the day I was locked out, the forensic accountant's first page with the wires already traced to Noel's shell. He added the doctor's letter on top. Fast paper beats sloppy paper. Heavy paper beats loud paper. I began my own list for court, the way Lydia taught me to make lists when a freezer died. Across the street, my house was wearing new arrogance. The cedar leaned toward the road as if straining to hear a dinner bell that had not rung in weeks. I felt the ache and filed it under later. The work now was sequence, not sentiment. I set alarms on my phone like appointments in a store. File motion, confirm hearing time, call managers to say paper checks only, arrange a sitter to bring the children Sunday if the door is still shut, pack a clean shirt for court, sleep. Evening came. I reheated soup on Mr. Alvarez's stove and ate standing up, reading my own notes until the words felt like grooves a cart could follow. Justice is not a victory march. It is a cart pushed straight along a rutted aisle. Tomorrow we push. I pictured the courtroom, the judge's patient face, Ava's polished stillness, Noel's pocketed hands. I pictured the moment the doctor's letter met the judge's eyes, the moment the deputy said the order came at dawn, the moment the video played and the threshold spoke for itself. I closed the red folder and slid it under my arm the way Lydia used to carry bread from the oven to the counter. Steady hands, no hurry, no drops. Plastic carries, paper remembers. In the morning, the court would too. The courtroom smelled like old wood and coffee that had been reheated twice. I sat at the front with Lydia's red folder on my knees, the doctor on one side, Keene on the other. Mr. Alvarez slipped into the second row, hat in his hands like a man in church. Deputy Diaz nodded from the back. I counted breaths and told my hands not to shake. Ava swept in exactly on time, pale suit, sharp heels. Noel a half step behind with a leather folio that wanted to be a briefcase when it grew up. She did not look at me. She looked at the judge's bench like she had already bought it. All rise. The judge was a woman with patient eyes and a face that said she had heard every version of every family story. She asked for short statements. No speeches. She wanted facts that fit in daylight. Ava went first. Her voice was smooth, the voice she uses with people she thinks matter. She talked about concern, about decline, about me wandering and resisting necessary change. She said the word safety and then could not help herself. She pivoted to assets. The house, she said, was idle capital. The stores were under-optimized. The scholarship in Lydia's name was not mission-aligned. She called Sunday dinners a pattern of regression. She called the grandchildren's expenses nice-to-haves. She did not mention grief, not once. She did not say my wife's name. The judge held up a hand. "Why the emergency order at dawn?" she asked, plain as a cashier. "Why not a conversation at the kitchen table?" Ava blinked. "Because he would dig in if given time," she said, and her mask slid 2 inches. "Because we are losing opportunities. Because we cannot wait 10 years for a payout when the market is this hot." There it was. Not a slip, a center. Noel watched the judge the way a gambler watches a card turn. His face said nothing. His hands said he had already moved money and now needed time to bury it deeper. Keene stood up and did not waste air. He handed the judge the doctor's letter. Competent, oriented, able to make decisions. He handed her the deputy's card. Dawn service, no agitation from me. He handed her a still photo from the day I was told to leave. My chair on the curb. He did not say cruel. He did not need to. He slid over the first page of the money tracing. Lines of numbers like footprints leading to Noel's partnership. The tracing shows transfers totaling roughly $25 million to a shell tied to Noel, he added. We've frozen what remains and served notice on the rest. He said in a voice meant for inventory, not argument. He wants to live in his house and run his life. She wants the money now. The judge looked at me. Do you want to say anything? I stood, because Lydia would not have liked me to talk to a seated woman. I want my house, I said. I want my stores to pay their people on time. I want my grandchildren to eat soup at my table on Sundays. The rest can wait its turn. My voice sounded like the back room of the first store, concrete and quiet. The judge nodded. She turned to Ava. Did you visit your father when he slept on neighbors' couches? Silence. A tiny click. Ava's jaw. That was temporary, she said. Strategic. Did you change the locks while he stood on the porch? Security was substandard. Did you call at dawn to remove him again? For his own good. The judge let the words sit. Everyone heard what they were. The room went very still. This is not complicated, the judge said at last. The order is canceled. Keyes returned. He goes home today. No removals without his written permission. If there is another stunt like that dawn visit, we will discuss consequences you will not enjoy. We will schedule the money dispute for later. Her gavel did not crack like thunder. It tapped twice, like a jar lid sealing. In the hallway, Ava waited. The smoothness had fled. What was left was bone. She did not ask how I was. She did not ask about the children. She stepped close enough for her perfume to make the air dishonest and said, in a voice stripped of audience, I will not wait 10 years. If I have to burn the stores to the ground and build condos on the ashes, I will. You are an obstacle. Obstacles move. Noel looked at the ceiling tiles like they were a spreadsheet and took a step back, letting her say it out loud. I saw her as she truly is. Charm as a coat, entitlement as skin, empathy as a story told about other people. Lydia had suspected. I had hoped. Hope is not a plan. I did not answer. Keene did not let me. He steered me toward the stairs with a hand on my elbow that said he knew how to keep a man from doing something he would regret. In the stairwell, the echo of our shoes sounded like a metronome set to steady. On the sidewalk, the sun was too bright. The air tasted like dust and victory in equal parts. Deputy Diaz met us at the curb. He would follow me home. Paper would follow him. We would do this the right way. Practical thoughts returned like old friends. Pick up stamped orders. Call the new security team. Take inventory of anything missing. Set a second bowl and extra spoons for Sunday. Send Maya a text with one word. Home. At the gate, the cedar leaned toward the street as if to hear my footsteps again. The sign with my name on it did not look brave. It looked ordinary. That is the point. The door opened. The house breathed. I set the red folder on the counter and filled a pot with water. Soup first, then the calls, then a list for the next hearing. Justice did not feel like a parade. It felt like shelves leveled, lids sealed, keys heavy in a bowl. Behind me, a shadow passed, the kind you feel when someone you love steps into a room. I lifted my head. The air smelled faintly of lemon oil and something warm in the oven. I said her name under my breath and got to work. On the third day after Keene read the will, the gate camera chimed. Ava stood under the cedar with sunglasses on in the shade, the way a person hides from their own face. Noel was gone. No movers, no guard. Just a daughter who finally understood the difference between paper and power. I did not open the gate. I let the intercom carry my voice. Her words tumbled. The bank had frozen what was left. The partnership had shut its doors and changed its number. Investors were calling her phone and her mother-in-law's phone and the school's front desk. The second court date had not waited. The judge read the reports, looked at the videos, listened to the deputy and the doctor, and sent the file to the special unit that handles elder abuse. The words investigation and protective order had landed on her kitchen counter like a pair of heavy shoes. She wanted me to make the shoes disappear. I made a mistake, she said finally. Dad, please. The cedar leaned toward her as if it wanted to hear the right thing. I heard the true thing instead. She did not care about soup or Sunday or my chair. She cared about the box that paid, the doors that opened, the men who used to return her calls. She was asking me to save her place at a table she had tried to flip. I stayed behind the metal. The grandchildren are welcome Sunday, I said, and kept my voice as flat as a list. You are not. She cried the way a person cries when crying is a tool. She said the word jail, then family, then face-saving. When the intercom clicked quiet, she stayed there a long minute, sunglasses in her hand now, eyes red and furious. The sign with my name on it did not blink. I watched her leave and waited for the ache that should have followed. It did not come. What came was a calm I recognized from the first store on a good Thursday. Shelves faced, bread stacked, numbers straight, the bell on the door ringing the right way. The second hearing was shorter than the first. No speeches. The judge reviewed the new papers, the bank confirmations, the forensic map of wires going where they had no reason to go, the deputy's notes from the Dawn eviction stunt, the doctor's letter, the video of me on the porch with my chair on the curb. She ordered a formal investigation into elder abuse and financial exploitation. She put my house and accounts under a protective order with my name on top and told every person with a badge or a bolt cutter to keep their hands off unless I invited them. She set a date months out for the money fight and looked at Ava the way a grocery clerk looks at a customer trying to return an empty box. Until then, the judge said, he lives his life. That became the shape of my days. I lived my life. I changed nothing dramatic, which turned out to be the most dramatic change of all. I showed up at the stores with a price gun and a thermos and my signature. Paper checks went out Fridays with my initials in the corners. Vendors smiled the way people smile when you pay on time. The scholarship in Lydia's name opened on schedule. The first thank you letter had a coffee ring on it and made me cry in the stockroom where no one could see. On Sundays, the grandchildren arrived like the weather. Maya with a bag of greens and an opinion. Leo with a plan for the tire swing's knot. Ellie with her case and a song she had almost learned. We ate soup thick enough to stand a spoon in. We argued about whether carrots belong in chili. We stacked plates and wiped the table and did math at the end to see if there was room for dessert. There usually was. Neighbors waved. The cedar leaned toward the street the way good listeners do. The house stopped echoing. The new security company learned to nod at the right people and ignore everyone else. The sign with my name became background, like the doorbell. I kept the red folder in the drawer that sticks. Plastic carries. Paper remembers. So do I. Ava tried again twice more. Once with flowers that did not match any room. Once with a letter that almost said sorry, and mostly said help. I kept to the sequence. I forwarded both to Keen. I reread the plain rules Lydia left. Who gets paid? Who waits? What happens when someone abandons the man who built the house she wanted to live in without him? I did not bend them. Mercy is not letting someone light the kitchen on fire because they say they are cold. Mercy is soup on Sunday for children who did not ask for any of this, and a porch light that means what it used to mean. The investigation did what investigations do when you give them room and witnesses. People talked. Paper stacked. Noel's smile got thinner in photographs and then stopped appearing. Ava learned to answer calls she could not control. The phrase elder abuse did not feel like thunder. It felt like a clerk stamping the right date on the right form so the right door would open. Whatever consequences they faced would come from that door, not from me. My work was finished at the gate. Spring gave way to a summer that favored open windows. I fixed the drawer Lydia meant to sand and did not. I oiled the hinges that had started to speak. I moved my chair a few inches back to where the rug remembered it. We hosted the scholarship girls and told them how to read a balance sheet and how to look a banker in the eye. Maya stocked the drink cooler at the first store for 2 weekends and discovered, work is a kind of language. Leo tied the tire swing knot so it would not slip. Ellie played a piece so sweet the cedar actually seemed to bend in closer. One evening I found Ava's key where I had left it, in a dish by the door, heavy and useless. I took it out to the cedar, dug a small hole by the strongest root, and buried it. Not as a ceremony, as a practical solution. The ground closed over the metal without complaint. Some things you put where they cannot tempt you. I do not tell this ending as a victory, because victory sounds like parades and speeches and confetti. This feels like something cleaner. The house is quiet in the right places and noisy in the right places. The stores pay their people. The grandchildren know Sunday means soup and a list of chores before dessert. The sign with my name is just a sign. Keys sit in a bowl and wait for the hands that should hold them. Was I right to keep the gate closed and let the court handle the damage while I saved Sundays for the grandkids? Would you have opened the door at the end? Tell me your opinion in the comments.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.